Conservatory Canada, Theory 1. Our lesson today is going to be dealing with pages 41 to 45 in the Theory 1 workbook, but we're going to actually back up to page 40, beaming notes. So sometimes we see eighth notes with single flags, which of the flags always go to the right, whether the stems are pointing up or down. Sometimes we see them using beams. So when we draw notes using beams like eighth notes and 16th notes, we usually do them in pairs or in groups of four. That's usually how we do them. We can do them in larger groupings as well or change the groupings, but usually pairs or fours. So what we have to do is we draw the note heads as we always would do. On the places on the staff, we would draw them. Then we add our stems, about 1 octave or about 3 lines long. About that, just generalizing. So we have our note heads, our stems, and then we draw the beam across. One beam denotes that they are eighth notes, usually counted something like 1 and 2 and. When we have a group of 16th notes, which can be done in 2s or more often in 4s, we draw our note head, our stems, whether they're up or down. I'm going to do a down actually this time. I'm going to do them in a group of 4, and we would usually count it 1 E and a 2 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a. We can see the picture of some notes with flags and notes with beams here in our workbook right there. So if sometimes we have stems that should be pointing up or down, we have to make a judgment call. And generally the third line rule tells us whichever note is furthest away from the third line determines the position. Now, that is not a hard and fast rule. Sometimes if all of the notes have stems pointing down, it makes more sense if 3 out of 4 of them can go down to go with the rule of majority. Sometimes it's the look of the music, but when we have a choice, we usually want to make a really good judgment call along the way. So sometimes these notes may be longer than 3 lines long for the stems. Sometimes they may be shorter, but we don't want to draw little stubby ones. We do want to make sure that they are still drawn. So if we take a look in the hints, we see some eighth notes, a group of 4 of them, that have to be actually drawn with the stems up. And we can see that their stems are lasting a little bit longer in the case than some of them for the full octave, and some are a little shorter as well. If we're drawing in groups and we're drawing them sort of graded up, it's good always to draw the notes, draw the stems, then the diagonal line as they point up or down, and that's what they show towards the bottom of the page. They usually suggest if you're doing 4 to do the outside ones first, followed by the inner ones. So our work is on page 41. Question 6, we're adding stems and beams to make groups of 2 eighth notes. They start us off on each line and we continue along. Question 7, add stems and beams to make groups of 2 16th notes. Question 8, stems and beams to make groups of 4 eighth notes. So we're going to be grouping 4 together. I'm going to do a quick example of the very first measure. I'm going to take this right out of my book here. And so I am drawing my stems for my outside notes. I draw the stems for the outside notes first. Now I'm going to beam the outside notes together. So I've done that work, and again, I'm doing the best I can, just kind of eyeballing it. Now I'm going to add my stems, and I've definitely gone a little longer than 3 lines, but you get the general gist of what I'm doing right there. I probably would, if I was doing this in a test situation, make them a little bit smaller. In fact, I'm going to try the second one. So the G should have a stem up, the A should have a stem up, the G should have a stem up, and the C should have a stem down because it's past the third line, but 3 out of the 4 are, and the G is the furthest one away from the third line, so that determines that they're all going to go up. So, again, I've eyeballed it, but I have made these stems a little bit better this time around. Now I'm going to beam them across and do the best I can with that. Those ones look a little bit better than the first 4 that I did right there. Okay? And now I'm going to question 9. Add stems and beams to make groups of 4 16th notes. I'm going to go to the second line here, the second line of the music. This note, first note is definitely above the third line, so it's going to go down on the left side. The next one is a down, the next one is a down, and the next one is a down. So that makes sense. And I am going to make my first one a little longer to match up with what I have to do for my others. And if I'm doing 16th notes, I know I have to do a double beam. So Again, eyeballing the best I can. I have done my stems for the last group of 4 right there. Then I'm going to beam it all the way across by 1. That makes a group of 4 eighth notes, and I'll beam it all the way across for 2. Makes a group of 4 16th notes right there. There we go right there. All right, moving along, we are on page 42. Exercises, relationship of notes and rests. For question 10, for each exercise, write one note that equals the value of the given notes. I see on exercise A, a pair of eighth notes equals 1 quarter note. So, that is what I get for my relationship of my notes right there. A pair of eighth notes is the equivalent of 1 quarter note, and that's what we want to do there. Question 11. For each exercise, write one note that equals the value of the given notes. I'm going to move to exercise B. In question 11B, I see a quarter note, and a half note. So quarter note, we often say gets 1 beat. So there's 2 of them, so that's 2 beats. A half note, which is in white with a stem, gets 2 beats. So 2 plus 2 equals 4. The note that receives 4 beats generally is the whole note, and that's our round oval. And it looks like that. Hopefully that's showing up on the screen there. And that's our answer for exercise B. 11B. Question 12. In the bass clef, write one rest that equals the value of the notes in each bar of the treble clef. So I'm going to look at the first bar. I see 2 groupings of notes. And in the first grouping are 2 16ths and an eighth. The second grouping is the exact same thing, 2 16ths and an eighth. So if I can figure out what the first one is, I should be able to figure out the second one. Now, this is a little bit of inside knowledge. When I see a grouping of notes, my eyes instantly say, probably 1 beat. Notice I said probably 1 beat. So I look to myself, 2 16th notes equal an eighth note. Then there's an eighth note. 2 eighth notes, I'm looking up at 10A, equal a quarter note. So if I've got 2 16ths and an eighth, there's 1 quarter note. 2 16ths and an eighth, I've got 2 quarter notes. The rest that is the equivalent of 2 quarter notes is the half rest. And it is the hat that sits on the third line, inside of the third space, and it looks like that. All right, we've got one more page of work, and then I think the rest is me talking. Question 13. We have, in the bass clef, write one note that equals the value of the notes and rests in each bar of the treble clef. A lot of students forget and they continue to write rests, so we have to be careful. We're going to draw one note. Let's look at the first bar. In the first bar of question 13, I see a half rest. That equals 2 quarter notes, so that's 1, 2. I see a group of 4 16th notes. Each of those get a quarter of a beat, so it takes 4 of them to make 1 beat. Notice again the grouping. My eyes see 1 beat, my eyes see 1 beat. 1, 2, 3, 4, and the rest that equals 4 beats is our whole rest. It hangs under the 4th line and sits inside of the 3rd space. And that is what the whole rest looks like right there for our first one right there. All right, I'm going to move through quick. Page 43, new chapter, hip hip hooray, simple time, chapter 4. So the word simple, I'm just going to tell you right off the bat, does not necessarily mean simple. In fact, some of the counting can be quite difficult to do. But the word simple just means that we are sitting with time signatures or timings that usually have 2 beats, 3 beats, or 4 beats, 2, 3, or 4. And simple also denotes that we can subdivide that beat in half. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. Different ways of thinking of that simple time. So, on page 43, it says beat and tempo. We have just learned how sounds, notes, and silences, rests, in music are held for varying lengths of time, called the duration. Now we will see how durations are